So we're live.
Hey,
Let
good
me
to see you
check.
live.
I'm gonna check the comments. If anybody's watching, I'd like to just see if we're good on the sound. So I think we'll wait a little bit for some people to stream in, but otherwise, I think I can introduce my friend Julian Hedenborg, my good friend Julian Hedenborg, who I've known since high school, I think.
Yeah,
And we are not good on sound, somebody wrote.
yeah, it's stuttering, isn't it?
Is it stuttering? How are we not good on sound? Let's do the. I think I can hear. Low and choppy. Well,
Low and choppy.
let's just level three.
Ah,
Julian loud. I'm soft. Okay, I
okay,
know what to do.
thank you. I will try to adjust.
Okay, I think we're good now. Should be better.
I will. How is it now from my volume? Is it getting any softer?
This is the fun of doing things live.
I
I
guess
knew
so, yeah.
this is the first live stream, so the first few minutes are gonna be a little bit rough.
Yeah, but thanks for feedback. We need it
Yeah,
so that we
thank
can
you.
make the experience worthwhile for you. Oh,
Anyways, the people who are joining now could just forget about what happened.
louder than Henry. But okay,
Still louder than Henry, but things are
let me
better.
see what I can do. Mic
Okay, thank you,
volume.
Mr. Boyd. Very helpful.
So I went as soft as I can. I hope
You're
this is
very
somewhat
soft for me
okay.
now. I think you should go a little bit louder, Julian.
Okay.
Technical
So
difficulties, please stand by.
yeah. It's always different if we do it live. I hope this
Okay,
is okay for everybody.
let's see. I think that's fine. I can hear you. You're still a little soft for me, but I don't. Maybe not for the people in the audience. But it's a live stream. It doesn't matter. It's not going to be the same quality as my videos where I get to curate everything, and make sure everything's perfect. So, by the way, I'll introduce myself. I'm Henry Wolf Carradine. I'm the person who runs Musica Universalis. Um, Sometimes I've had students who think that Julian, here, my friend, is actually the person who runs this channel because he's played so many of my pieces and videos, but he's not the person who runs this channel. It's actually me. But Julian's been indispensable for me. Through the years, you've recorded many of my pieces and premiered many of my pieces, and today we're going to talk about the first piece we did together. Basically, we did a little piece before that, but this was like the first major project we did together, and it's been 6 years since I first wrote the piece, and we finally got it recorded last year, and today is the release. You can get it on iTunes and Apple Music and Amazon. All the links are in the description. So I think we just talk about the piece. If people have any questions, they can write it in the live chat. I have the questions are only for subscribers, just to prevent spam. So just so if you're trying to comment and it's not going through, that's because it's only subscribers can comment. Um, Julian, do you have anything to say about yourself? Do you want to introduce yourself? This is not going to be a very. There's no plan for the stream. This is just a first off fun. Let's see how it goes and just talk about music and the release of my sonata.
Yeah, no, I'm very, very happy to be here with you now that we finally got this piece out that we can bring it to the world to hear it online also. And yeah, it's been a long way, no? We met in school, as you said, and like, yeah, really
Over
this
10
friendship
years.
developed
Yeah.
more than, yeah, more
Yeah.
than 10 years.
I
It
should
goes
also
quicker than you think.
I should also mention Julian was my best man at my wedding, so we're on very good terms.
This really friendship-wise
Yeah.
developed so much, yeah, and yeah, it is the first time that a sonata, like any musical piece, was dedicated to me, so it's a very big honor
Yeah.
for me too. And yeah, it was a lot of excitement in this work, and I hope we can, address that a little bit more in detail later.
Yeah, I'll just present the album artwork. I'll show that on stream. And I will admit I used AI to develop the artwork. But I will say it's actually there's I think there's a lot of AI can be an interesting tool because you can use sort of like I had to actually like outpaint the whole picture, so it took me quite a long time to actually make the album artwork. I like it. I think it's indicative of the piece. It's
How, yeah,
beautiful.
I wanted to ask you about that, about the album artwork. Like, what were you going for? Like, what did you want to, like, bring out something from the music? Like, how is it connected to the piece for you? I mean, obviously the piano is standing in the middle. That part is obvious, right?
Yeah, there's something I think that's naturalistic about it, but also I there's something about the piece that's blue to me, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. Um, that's as basic as a comment I can give. The ocean's blue, the sky's blue, the piano's blue. It's on the beach. I don't think there's much like profound meaning to the album artwork as much as there is to the piece. But I thought I thought it was fun just experimenting a little bit with AI. But I still think it's better to pay artists and use real artwork. But as I consider myself an artist, I have the right to use it. So I think we can just sort of what I'd like to sort of just discuss is first of all, I'd like to thank Julian because he made the recording possible for that we got to record on a Bösendorfer at the Bösendorfer factory in Wiener Neustadt. It's a small town outside of Vienna where we both live. Um, and I'm really thankful for Julian because he had the connections that got us that to use the not only use the like a really good piano, an Imperial Grand, which has the extra keys. Some people might know, which we didn't utilize for the recording. We thought about it, but there wasn't any moment. It just was overbearing at the only moment I thought it would work. Um, so I want to thank you for that because we got to also choose the piano in advance, and the piano had been sold, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
but then the seller canceled last minute or something, and then it was still available. No?
yeah. No, yeah, we lucked out on that. So we recorded at the factory and over a weekend last year. It was almost a year ago, but in the meantime, I've been busy with other things, and I've finally gotten to release it today. And I think I also have to thank this. We're just going through like the little introduction here. I also have to thank your friend Lubo. Um, that somebody just wrote in the chat that whether you use the extra keys or not, they provide a resonance that makes Bösendorfer tone special. I think that's why we chose the Imperial Grand. We had a bunch of choices, and it just sounded much fuller because there's just more instrument, there's more wood, there's more resonance. What was?
Yeah, I have to
Yeah,
also say, like, yeah, I used to play a lot of on Steinways. I still play on the Steinway. I have a very old Steinway at home as well. It has been bashed a lot. But yeah, over the years with chamber music work especially, I had the chance to play Bösendorfer over and over, and it also being a Viennese manufacturer, Austrian manufacturer kind of, and it it just has this like the different kind of mix in the tone, especially when you play chamber music, and I got to really appreciate that. over the years as well. Like I said, I play all the pianos. I don't make no exception. But I'm very glad that we tried this piece on the Bösendorfer because yeah, I don't know. I would have imagined it on the or very well on the Steinway or on Yamaha, but I think it was
I'm not the biggest. Yeah, I don't want to bash piano companies on live stream.
No, we all have preferences. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Right. I think you're a little choppy, your sound. Oh, just on my end. Maybe
Sorry,
in the chat could tell us or not.
Please tell us when there are technical difficulties so that we know that we need to adjust.
Are you on, or is your sound on the...
Yes,
it's on your device.
Oh.
If you tried with your headphones, maybe, to go through there.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I also have to thank our sound technician, Lubo Lukic, also a good friend of ours. And I think we just sort of like open up the discussion now, because one more thing is I didn't put the piece on Spotify. It's only on Amazon and AppleMusic because I don't like Spotify. It doesn't really make much sense as a classical musician unless you're getting like six-digit listens, and most of us classical people aren't. So I just think it's kind of like a robbery for you put your stuff there and people basically are listening to it for free. And I think if you want to listen to the music, you can subscribe to Apple Music or whatever, pay the $2.99 I think is what the album costs on iTunes, or you can download the MP3 on Amazon. And just to get all the sort of advertisement stuff out of the way, the sheet music is also in the description. It's on sale now for €10, and it's normally €20, but you can, if you go to the description, you can get some. You can get the sheet music cheap it's only going to be like that for a month. I'll put it back to €20. So with all that out of the way, I think we should just talk about the piece and music and how me, a composer, and a musician work together. So, do you have any questions for me, Julian, at this point?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to clarify, is the sound
much
okay?
Better. It's much better.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I hope it's also the same for the audience. Let's hope there are not difficulties anymore. Yeah, I mean, it was so fun to work with you also in this specific setting, because when do you have, like, I'm used to play a lot of did you go away, Henry, or are you still there, or is it just me?
Technical difficulties, of course. I'm back.
You're back. Good to have you back. Didn't want to be talking to you without you being in the room, so to say. Right. No, because I have very often like moments when I practice, the Schumann, Brahms, or whatever, and I'm like, oh, why did you do this? Like, how what was the idea behind this? It's all questions that we can think about and try to make the best out of it and to make a good, responsible decision to, for the sake of music. But to have the chance to talk to you also, I did kind of annoy you a little bit sometimes, didn't I?
Yeah.
You gotta admit, like I was like, hey, why did you do this like this, and why did you do this like this, and and I was asking, hey, can we do it differently? It makes more sense like this, and we had real discussions.
Sometimes you were right. Sometimes.
Yeah, but sometimes we both thought it might be better to change something, but then basically we got back to what you had written because that made in the end more sense in the bigger picture.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Because you just take out a measure and you play that and you'd say, oh, this, this sounds better just like in the vacuum, just this in the moment. And I go, oh yeah, you're right. And then we'd be recording it, and then you play the whole section, and then we realized that sounds kind of off, and then we'd put it back to the other way. And then other times you just had like voicing recommendations that were just better, just certain chords or just things that were more. I also have to listen to you as you're a far better pianist than me, and I just have to listen to you sometimes. What your what your opinion is about a certain
You don't have to, but
whatever
I'm
is
very, very
pianistic,
glad you
more
did.
pianistic. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think that's the most interesting thing I'd say to other people who are composers is there are some composers who don't want to listen to musicians. They have this sort of air about them. Everything is perfect. I did everything right. You listen to me now, and I mean, maybe sometimes if you're like if you really know, but I've met some people who just I think it's more like a I don't want to be like derogatory, but more like a sort of a what we'd say in German Schutzmechanism. I'm trying to think of that
Yeah,
in English.
fine.
You have to
Defense
keep in mind,
mechanism.
some of these people here have to understand. I finished high school in German, so I even though my mother tongue is English, sometimes I can only say the term in German. It's the only thing I know how to say, and vice versa.
Yeah, we also very often talk in German and actually Viennese, and it's yeah, it's just
Yeah, Viennese is not the same as German. Let's put it that way
there's
for the
a
people
certain
in German.
nuance mentality-wise and how you perceive things and how you express things. Would
Right.
you say, Henry, actually that this is like a heavy influence on also on your music? How do you see that? Like, is that sometimes you discover?
Do you mean like the Viennese culture, or what do you mean?
I mean, obviously, yeah, but like, do you think? So, what is your sound like? It's not pure American. It's not pure Austrian. It's like a kind of a mix for you, or
Yeah, that's the thing. After living 15 years in Austria, or 16 years now, I don't. It's I don't feel like an Austrian, but I don't feel like an American anymore. I'm just kind of this like in between thing, and I think sometimes it comes out in the music where I'll have a moment that's a little bit jazzy or a little bit more like American folk, or then something that's more like Austrian folk, or then even in this sonata, there's a little bit of like Balkan energy, sort of like Bosnian, Croatian, but we'll get to that a little later because I think that's an
right?
interesting story. Um,
Yeah, I remember.
I also think it's interesting to sort of discuss that I do realize I'm not like an average composer now, and that I kind of want to go more a tonal route. Um, and I wouldn't say the piece I wrote was incredibly experimental. I think the reason I wrote it mainly was because I wanted to challenge myself at the time. I had never written like a large format sonata, and I just felt like I need to practice this. I need to get it down, and that's ultimately why I started it. But I put so much energy and invested so much time into it that I now think I think it's a valuable piece of music, at least for me. It means a lot to me.
I also remember that you said in this process that you also wanted to write something that you didn't only want to challenge yourself, but also the musician
Yeah,
that
yeah,
will be playing it. And we discussed this a few times, and I was like, oh yeah, I saw that you made that aspect
yeah.
also.
Well, no, I think especially the because we're kind of talking to to people here like they know the sonata, and I think some older people on my channel. I'm not sure if it's the few people who are watching right now are acquainted with the piece as deeply as we are, and obviously we can't play the whole thing yet, now on the stream, but. I'd encourage people to maybe listen to the sonata after the stream, and then maybe they'll get some sort of insight into to what we're talking about. I have a couple of like snippets of the piece here that I can share when we get to it, but otherwise that's sort of yeah that's the situation. So as this is the first live stream, there's no organization. It's all chaos, and we're just gonna go with the flow. and and I'll be doing this regularly, so once a month on Thursday. So I'll at last Thursday of the month. So I'll get better with time. And I hope that you'll be on again. Next time it's going to be our friend Yunus is going to talk about Scriabin. But for now, I think. What do you think is the most important advice composers can offer a musician and vice versa?
You mean advice when playing the piece composed by the composer? Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the questions that we raise during the work on a piece will be very, very individual, depending on the artist and how you perceive things. But if you have, the best case scenario is everything is in the score and there are no open questions. But we both know it's not the case with even the greatest artists, because it's really, really difficult to put everything that you can do on the. Let's talk about the analog piano now. In a score, right? It's obviously different in other areas, but the biggest advice, for example, is just some musical expression, how much you can take time in certain ways, how much you also consider the technical aspect of what the musician will be doing. That, because, how can I put this in words? I have moments in compositions where I discover that the composer thought about me, about the musician, how to solve a certain thing, and how to, if there is maybe something, how do you say, a difficulty where you want to express a certain thing and it's quite difficult to play, but you made some compromises so that it still fits what you wanted to express, but it's also doable on the piano, or it's like a little bit easier, or it's, yeah. When I can feel something like that, I feel very respected and taken care of in a certain way, and that makes me like the composer as a human being just a little bit more,
Yeah.
And there were a few moments also in your sonata when you gave me that advice, for example, to play there was this certain place where it's like arpeggio with a very wide, and it looks kind of very unnatural, but if you basically wanted this kind of movement where you just regularly overcross and you just throw your hand around. I might have gotten to that, but you just telling me, hey, do it like this, was very helpful. Obviously, like, if you have a score with a lot of fingering in there already, because the piano playing so in a way so that you can express that, that's also very good. But yeah,
I think the most important things I think the most interesting thing you offered to the whole project was, first of all, when I wrote it, I sent you like a MIDI file, which is like the bane of all musicians' existence, to actually have to listen to a MIDI file of a piece. Because if you write something in Sibelius, then you export it into MIDI, it sounds horrible, and everything is done. I think there's like a free measure that's written like a cadenza, and just the way the computer plays that is ridiculous. And so and so you have that to work with, and the notes, and I was really happy that more or less what I had intended is what you produced, which I think is points for both of us mainly. I think because I have to write it in a way that makes sense to you, and you have to play it in a way that makes me happy, and you really sort of achieved that. I think after 4 times, and I think it. I don't just think, I know you did a great job, and I'm happy we could have done it together. But
yeah, but you also told me during this project many times, and you encouraged me basically to take more freedom. And you were saying, hey, yeah, I can tell that you're making a certain effort to make it in the time there, but don't feel too much pressure on that, and use the freedom. And you also put it in the score. Sometimes there are tempo changes and rubato and stuff like that, like ritardando or something that you are considering that should be played like this. And also, that I used to work with MIDI also for my own entertainment. I was doing this popular music, like electronic music, very, very basic, very simple stuff, just arranging basically, no sound designing. But I know how MIDI works. But it's also helped me a lot because I need to hear it.
Yeah, Well,
And
that's the thing. That's the difference. Sort of is you get the piece, and then you don't have any reference other than the MIDI and the music. And so it's not like, okay, I'm gonna play this Brahms sonata. How did Horowitz play it or something, or you
exactly.
can't listen to some other master to orient yourself off of. You are the first one who's played it, so essentially you're inventing the interpretive style that if somebody else will perform in the future, hopefully, I didn't say hopefully in that I don't I just that the piece lives on beyond our time. But when somebody else plays the piece later, um, that they'll have you as the first reference, not a MIDI. So I think that's you are also part of the composition process in a way.
That was super exciting and also kind of not terrifying, but you know what I mean. Like I'm trying to set a bar here, kind of pressure thing.
Yeah.
You put some pressure on yourself so that you work better on. No, but it was both exciting and also like there was a responsibility. Maybe that's the words to use. I could feel like I can help the people being encouraged to play this piece, or like to know what kind of direction to go for, or try even their own thing. I mean, I was actually quite impressed how open you were, and you said, if you want to really do something differently, I am open to it. And I think we had this conversation once, how you would feel like if somebody, let's take like some person you don't even know, at some point takes a piece and fiddles with it a little bit. How
Yeah.
would that make you feel?
I mean, if I'm not alive, I'm obviously not gonna care. But anymore. But I think there's a lot of room. In my opinion, I'm not. I've changed little things in the sonata over the years. I think the edition that you can buy now is like the sixth time. So I've tweaked little things in the score. Not big things, just little things here and there. And I think it's more or less fixed for now, since after the recorded. So we have like the definitive version and the recording. So I think I'm completely open to people changing little things, writing their own little osias or everything enhances at the end. If they're competent in what they bring to the table is good. Like it could be interesting. I have a little section in the first movement that's sort of like a cadenza. It's sort of written freely. I think you know which part I'm talking about.
Yeah, do you want to maybe put it on or something?
Yeah, I can show the sheet music, right? Hold on. So there we go. Interesting. Technical difficulties again. Always fun. Hold on. So let me get it. Okay, here. So there's the sheet music.
Hopefully, yeah. I can see it.
So I'm gonna just find the spot
No,
I'm
it's
looking
gone.
for. So at the end of the development of the sonata, there's this little sort of section. It starts. I think you can see my mouse on screen, right?
Yeah.
It starts here where it says ad libitum, and I think I have also in the chat. I also have the music that we can play. Right.
Did,
Now
sorry,
I
quick
have to start.
question.
Hold on a second.
Did
Yeah, there we go.
people hear that? Because I didn't hear it.
Oh, did you not hear the?
I didn't. But I thought maybe because I'm in the stream, maybe I couldn't. But if anybody could confirm that it was audible for you,
If somebody's brave enough to write in the chat. Anyways, we won't know, but for yet. But I think what I just wanted to say is that if somebody wanted to take like that section and write their own cadenza,
right.
that would be intro. Yes, was audible. Somebody wrote. Okay, that's good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Scratch it.
Okay, so you would be open to people basically doing a little bit of a different, their own version, or their own take on it.
Right. If they took that section, they could do their own sort of cadenza. Now, if you know the piece in context, there are a couple of moments in there that are, as in all sort of cadenzas, that are based off of the themes that are presented before in the movement.
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to refer quickly to the comment that was posted meanwhile, if there is a shift or it's a misunderstanding, that modern composers are quite open in some ways to interpretation.
Oh, here,
I think
I'll put it on screen, the comment.
Yes, please do. Modern composers always seem more open to interpretive differences than my impression of historic composers. I always wonder if this is a shift or a misunderstanding of history. I think this is a very interesting comment because it was common practice now to improvise, to have like little own cadenzas, add little decoration if there is a repetition and stuff like that, not just like loud, quiet, terrace dynamics and that's it. I think it's just certain schools or ways to interpret and to say, okay, we researched this composer so much and we know how it might have been and how it's supposed to be, and that's the correct form and there isn't any other. Look, I mean, it's one thing to really rebuild something or like to keep alive how it was done at a certain time. That's one, like, how do you say, authentic style. Yeah, but I think music
form performing.
Exactly. Thank you very much. And it should also be always encouraged to take something that has been done, to imitate, and then to make something out of it. That is a little bit of your own ideas as well, because that's how any kind of musician, composer was raised back then. You would copy work of other people, you write it down as they written it.
That's
so that you understand.
Bach, yeah.
Exactly, and then
I think it was like one of his things. So when he was 13, I don't know if this is. I'm paraphrasing the story. It's been a while. He stole music out of the cabinet, and then by moonlight he'd copy it out. When he was, I think, like 13 or something. I could be misremembering the story, but I think Bach would have been fairly open to it. I do know there's sort of like a story between Chopin getting very angry at Liszt for doing too much interpretation or too much freedom of his performance, but I think in general I think it's more of a modern thing actually, or maybe it's let's say like 1900 to 1950, sort of the Stravinsky. The piece is absolute. Nothing can change. I know exactly what I want. I think it's just by a composer. I just think some are open and some aren't, and it goes back a long way, especially because improvisation used to be so key for musicians, classical musicians, until the 20th century.
I think the composition space just changed a little bit over time, didn't it?
Yeah.
Basically, because it had more of a simpler structure and had more space to do maybe your own insert your own things. But if it's really written out to the minimum core, it's like micromanaging composition technique. If you've done that work as a composer, then you want it to be respected. If you just laid out a sketch and say okay, this is the base, do something with it, all the time's done something else maybe.
Well, what I tried to do with my music is I kind of focus on how it sounds at the end of the day, and I notice a trend with a lot of like modern composers that they they build like the ultimate score. It's like full of really. It's more to look at than to listen to, if that makes sense. If I can be uh, a little mean. Some people seem to be hyper focused on how amazing their sheet music looks, and then uh, for me, at the end of the day, I think it's kind of just about music's meant to be listened to, not looked at, and that's still kind of what I believe, and that's why the way I tried to compose because I think the way it's impressive to like I recently somebody told me that it's like for composition competitions they'll be told like instead of writing it in 4/4 time, write it in 4/16 time because it looks denser.
Right, right,
Yeah,
okay, yeah,
it's more enticing to the jury's
yeah.
eyes, um, and I mean a little bit of that could probably be said of oh let me just bring up the score here of the first movement.
Or did you do something pretty too?
No, I just did something that's maybe not a there might have been another way. Let's just put it that way. Um, let's see here. Okay. So I have this section that's sort of sextuplets in the bass. Obviously they're not written, so up
Yep.
here you can see the it starts and
Right.
then it continues and then the measure change the time signature changes with the sextuplets. So it's not like the if people know the Chopin scale, so that's it's played sort of like sextuplets, that one. People will know in the chat. You know it very well, Julian.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. um, that one is it's written in 3/4 time, and it's almost written like this. So I could have, in theory, written this in 3/4 time. In theory, right?
Right,
But
right.
then I think you'd have to sort of think about the hemiola and how you accent it. Um, but I think at the end of the day, for me, it was more important that the sort of the contours of the melodies matched the time signature more than the bass. So it wasn't the bass determining
Hmm.
it; it was the melody in this case.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
That I can see.
but
And
it's not a very complex score. I think is the point I'm getting across. It's not as complex as some of like the I'd say sort of contemporary pieces that I've seen. They're really beautiful scores. I mean, I could hang one up on the wall. They're quite interesting, but I don't know if they sound as good as they look all the time.
I mean, I have to also, so I remember I did something like that too in the MIDI composition that I did about
Yeah.
with the digital music, and I, I was arranging this piece, and I had, I think it was two instruments lined up on top of each other. So it was, and there was even more instruments. I always like layer many instruments because I can't really do any sound design other than that. But so I made it like so that the one thing goes like this, and then the other goes like this, so that basically with the two lines on top of each other, you could see a heart, and there was even a number of hearts
Okay.
because that had a very specific meaning. And it also like I did it, but I did not just do it because it looked like hearts. Then I also tried to do it in a way so that it was like harmonically pleasing, and
Right.
I managed to find a way to do it. And then I was like very excited about that. So I. It, you know, it's okay to like have a little bit playful approach to it too. Sometimes I think.
Yeah. No. There's also there's like a guy on YouTube who does I think it's YouTube that does like drawing of a cat and it'll scroll over the cat. Have you seen that?
Ah,
He
no, I
draws
don't
the
think so,
notes
but
in
I
like
think.
such a way that it sort of looks like a cat. I'm
And
sure.
then it looks like a
Yeah.
painting,
Yeah.
like a picture
And
sketch.
then it
No.
scrolls over the cat. Um, I think I'll just give like a sort of like at this point in the video just a brief sort of like rundown of the piece I wrote and sort of the context of when I wrote it.
Yeah.
Because I think it was written in winter and I think that has an effect also sort of on the piece. because when I sort of conceived of writing it was we had planned a concert at the Stingel Salon in Vienna back then, which is it's a sort of well-known piano house here in Vienna, and I had the date, but I didn't have a piece yet, so I had to write something, and we'd agreed, like I think around December or November we'd agreed that I'd write a piece for you. And originally it was my piano suite that I wrote back then, and then Jonas ended up playing that, who will be on the next stream talking about Scriabin and colors, and he'll probably keep the stream in a good frame. Let's put it that way, not chaotic. But this is just a discussion.
Well,
this is
let's see about that. Let's see about that.
Yeah.
He can sometimes be right completely.
Especially when we're talking about Scriabin and colors.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I wrote the piece, it was winter, and I had taken a long hike through the Prater. So if people know Vienna, Prater is like what do you call it? Like the Central Park of Vienna. It's a big park with long alleys.
Huge park.
So I had dropped off my then girlfriend, now wife, she was doing a commercial. She was playing violin for the commercial. So I dropped her off, and then I walked through this long alley with snow and trees, and I listened to the Beethoven's Hammerklavier Sonata because I'm incredibly obsessed with that piece, and I just sort of listened to it twice. That's how far down the Prater was. I could listen to the like hour-long piece twice, just to sort of have like the form of the piece impressed on me, if that makes sense. Not that I was trying to copy it, just that feeling of length and at the end of the day, my sonata is not an hour long or 45 minutes like the Hammerklavier. If you play it in tempo, I think the Hammerklavier is 45 minutes, but few people can. But that's another topic. the length of the metronome for the Hammerklavier Sonata. So that was sort of the beginning of it. I had collected some of the motifs for the piece. I had written at an apartment on like a little like keyboard, and it was across the street from like a Bosnian Croatian nightclub, which was completely soundproofed. So whenever the door would open, I'd get a moment of like Balkan music. If people know Balkan music, it's very rhythmic and it has a lot of like ornaments in it. I did like that sort of thing. If people know Balkan music, they'll know what I'm talking about. And so I get like 3 seconds of that every now and then when the door would open. Then it would close. It was completely soundproof because it was so loud. They obviously were driving the neighbors nuts. So every time that would open, and what happened was I was writing like a motif that was initially very that's how it started, and then eventually it became like it's the same thing. So people, if I can play it in the chat, people who know the piece will know, but I'll just play it for the. So that's the main theme, and the piece goes on from there. So that's sort of the like Balkan influence. So here I am, an American in Austria, and I'm writing like a Balkan sort of influence thing. And I just wanted to figure out how to, and I also decided to call the piece Dorian instead of writing it like a typical key signature. I picked a mode. In the end, a lot of the harmonies are just based off of major and minor, but the motif is based off of Dorian. If you want to be like, hyper exact about it, it'd be Hypo-Dorian. But it's it's not important to get into too much detail, but Dorian is interesting. I think I told you this once. Do you remember what I told you, that it's symmetrical? It's completely
Yeah. I remember.
So what the first four notes are like the second four notes, so they mirror each other, which makes the composing the piece very interesting. So each movement of the piece is also, except the second one's a little bit less so, but the first, third, and fourth are all sort of based off of a like a fourth a jump of an interval of the fourth, and then just like a little turn figure in between. So like so if the first movement is, that would be the main motif. Then I mean it keeps developing in the piece, but then the third movement is, and then the final movement is. Those are the just very simple motifs, but they're all based off of that sort of. If I were to frame it in sort of the smallest musical piece of grammar, then the motif is based off of those two aspects. And then the second movement is sort of it was sort of it was like during the like the I wanted to experiment with another that has a sort of Arabic, like Spanish section. It's more based off of Arabic music, which with the double harmonic scale, which is also symmetrical, like Dorian. So it's all of the things are like related, and I just wanted to know what was like your impression of the piece when you played it. You've played it now 4 times live, and you spent a lot of time practicing it. So, if you had to like run down movement for movement, what did it mean to you? Because I generally don't like describing my pieces.
I mean, first of all, I want to say, like as you mentioned, we played it a couple of times in live concerts, and I'm kind of very, very happy that we took our time until we got to record the piece, because at the beginning I was very busy with the technical difficulties still, and I was trying to make it quick and like effective and stuff like that. And I was also a little bit in a different phase, if you want to put it like that, as a pianist. And then when we got to the recording, it was already like I had the chance to revisit the piece a couple of times, so I really I really got to discover that sometimes really taking some time and not rushing that much or trying to push it too much can really make the difference. So I sometimes took a tempo now that is definitely like under the tempo that was in the beginning of the process, but some things also like is now quicker because I feel more comfortable with it. I mean, it also makes sense now that there is a blue in the piece because there was some. It was a cold time when you came up with the base topic. I mean, when I can say this, I think it's great that the fourth movement has such a distinctive character to it. I mean, for everybody who doesn't know, and probably nobody knows, I'm a huge car guy in my free time. Like I love driving cars and stuff like that. It's the other side of me, so if you want to put it like that. So when I started playing the fourth movement and I listened to it multiple times and I tried to really accustom to it, it's like an engine that goes and goes and goes. It's like
mechanical.
Yeah, it is kind of mechanical, but very, very alive and excited at the same time, as a car is, because the car is also alive.
I can bring it up on screen for the people who
yeah, please do.
Yeah. Okay, here is that. Yeah, good. I'll just play like the initial motif. So, I mean, it's very like basic figure. The fourth movement is written as a rondo. So let me get the.
You made a video about rondo. I remember that.
Yeah, a long time ago. Long time ago. Here, I'll play it. Yeah. Yeah. So I think I have to bring attention to this. Me being a jerk and writing in D sharp minor, which is just a theoretical key signature. I didn't want to write it in. I didn't want the bass to look the same as before. I apologize.
No,
Forgive
but
me.
this figure actually, those bars, they kind of repeat over and over, and they
Yeah.
also develop over time.
Hmm.
So this became like a very, I don't know. I started really looking forward to coming back to this moment again and
Okay. Yeah.
again and adding a little bit more. And also there is this one part where you slow it completely down and like, make it very differently before you push it on the end again.
Let's.
So
I'm gonna try and find that section because I can then because you just mentioned that it gets a little bit slower and um, where is that? Right. Okay. Let's see. Is it here?
yeah, Rachmaninoff and
Okay.
Prokofiev, yeah, definitely. Also reminds me too.
And then back to the. So that's the section you were referring to. I think that's also an important point I make because people are like my form videos. If you're repeating something in a rondo, like the A section, because that sort of comes right in the middle of the piece. So instead of just having the main theme of the rondo that's repeated over and over, that's sort of interjected by the episodes, instead of having it sound the same over and over again, I changed it particularly in the middle just to give the sort of like a out of the rondo to make like an A B B A out of the A B A C A D A B A C. I can't think that much
Right,
now,
right, right.
but out of the smaller components, I made like a bigger A B A form to it. Somebody wrote the here. Somebody wrote the left hand figure reminds me of the. Oh, okay. I think
That's what I
he
was
means
thinking.
the
Yeah,
that one. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, definitely. I didn't think of that, but actually it makes total sense.
yeah. Except it's E minor figure, but the motif is based off of the Dorian scale. Now I think my favorite part of the piece that I mean
No, tell me.
maybe I should ask you first. What if you have like a favorite moment or a favorite movement or
Yeah, I mean, I love the fourth movement, right? You know it, and also the first movement, because it's really the headpiece, like because you start into the sonata with that. It is really like uh, well refined, or like it's very effectful. But as much as I love those, also I love the second and the third movement also a lot because it gives this whole thing a little bit. Yeah, you mentioned the Arabic kind of feeling as well, but also this like very wholesome kind of feeling that you kind of bring across in the third movement from time to time. I really appreciated that kind of change as well, and. you know I love movement, not movement sections, but like movement as in general.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of different kind of movements to experience in this piece, which I appreciated a lot. Yeah, because it's like, you know, it basically pushes you. You kind of really like it's you're trying to cope with it sometimes that much, and then it draws you back. Like that's the maybe most important part of music for me in general to experience, because that makes me really like feel alive and excited about it, even
Thank you.
if it's in a slow movement or something like
Yeah.
that. You know, that's something that Chopin used to play around with like crazy, and Mendelssohn, or like in general lead, like singing and all that, because it reminds you of that of what a human being like to be a human
Yeah.
being,
Yeah.
you know, means. Like there is excitement, there is calmness, there is like all these contrasts in your life. Yeah.
And I think that's a good point because I at the end of the day, I mean, I'll experiment a bit as a composer, but I want to write stuff that I like to listen to myself, and when the pieces I listen to, I'm influenced from everything from you know Renaissance music up until like Shostakovich, and even minimalism stuff from minimalism, like from John Adams or Philip Glass. I know some people don't like Philip Glass, but I find there's immensely beautiful stuff that he's written. Whether people like have that opinion or not, I think there's tools you can find from all composers. Even some people who know my channel know that I do go a little bit after like 12-tone music and atonal stuff sometimes, but even that, there's value and merit, and there are tools you can use from that type of music that are just completely unique. And I hope that the piece at the end is not just like ended up being like a pastiche, like a potpourri of different, like, oh, this moment's Chopin, oh, this moment's Rachmaninoff, or oh, at least it's its own like coherent idea altogether at the end. Obviously, you can hear a little bit of that and that composer that influenced me here and there, but that's at the end of the day. I hope that it's someday people go, oh, that's Carradine. Um, and I think for me, the my favorite movement is probably the third one. Yeah, and I particularly like that at the end of the fourth movement I have a section called retrospect, which is the last page, which is all of the like melodies from the first, second, and third movement are brought back, and then I throw in like the final motif from the fourth movement and end the piece. So you have this like look back at what came before in the piece, and I I think it shows how all of the melodies sort of come together at the end. That they're all sort
So
of
it's like a
related
little
in some way.
flashback.
It's a
Yeah.
flashback, but it's also it sort of shows that everything's related at the end. So it's not just movement, 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 and they're all their own thing. I think the third movement has an attacca, so it goes directly into the fourth movement. It goes third movement, fourth movement. But um, yeah, it was a labor of love, and Julian, you did a great job, and I'm happy you got me, Imperial Grand Bösendorfer. Um,
No, you gave me this opportunity to work like this. So
yeah,
um, it was really an experience for me, very special.
yeah. Is there? I mean, we don't have a lot of people watching, so I think we'll just sort of slowly wrap it up. Do you have anything you want to say, or that you felt wasn't mentioned, or?
Well, I mean, obviously, it was already mentioned, but go listen to the sonata if you haven't already, and if you have already, please listen to it again. And I will also play it again. And yeah, I don't know, maybe we will at some point meet in person or in a concert hall. That would be absolutely fantastic. Um, but yeah, I don't know. What is a good what is a good wrap up thing to say?
Well, the
Uh,
next the next live stream is gonna be with our mutual friend Jonas Herman. We're gonna be talking. Um, I think we agreed that we'll talk about Scriabin and colors, which I think will be an interesting topic to talk about. And he might or may not make like a little PowerPoint show that we can go through. I don't want to speak for him. We're still in the planning section, so it'll be the last Thursday of May at the same time at 7 o'clock. And our recording is available on Amazon. The links are in the description, and Apple Music, and you can also stream it on Apple Classical, which I think is a cool new app. Do you know about Apple Classical?
I heard about it, but I haven't used it myself yet.
It's cool. It's cool. That's my review. I don't want to get into a big review of Apple Classical.
Yeah,
it's available
okay,
there too, and support the artists. And the best thing you could do is buy it on iTunes, and you can also buy the sheet music. And I think that'll be the end, and I'll be seeing Julian in the real world. But if we end up recording another piece again together, that's the next time you'll see both of us together.
Oh, I got one. Sorry, because I ended on before on praying for it. So maybe one thing that I can wrap up this is like I really hope that people who are gonna play it or listen to it, but even play if you can just get your hands on it. It's not about like playing the whole piece, but because it's really fun to play, and that's also key. That's also key. So just go have fun.
I'm the composer, and I'll admit I can play little parts of it, but I can't play it like Julian. But it's a difficult thing. Oh, somebody's giving their comments on Apple Classical. Yeah. No, he said he says that Apple Classical is better for artists than Spotify. I think it's probably better for classical artists. At least they have an app for classical and understands sort of like a different thing, and that you have many recordings of the same pieces. It's just better than metadata. It's just, I think, better, especially for us as classical musicians. So if you want to buy it on iTunes, whatever, do so. Sheet music's in the description, on sale, €10, and
it's less than a pizza now.
Yeah, it's or maybe a Starbucks coffee in some places. If you drink Starbucks coffee, don't do that.
No, obviously not.
We live in Vienna with the best coffee in the world, so of course we're gonna bash Starbucks. Anyways, we're droning out. It was an interesting first live stream. I mean, this is me. People don't know who I am. This is what I look like. Hi, and now. Goodbye from both of us.
Hey, it was a blast.
Bye.